Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I'm going to be setting a really large faceted stone. It's about 26 millimeters by 19 millimeters. I picked it up last September at a Denver gem show. It's a citrine. It's got kind of a cool cut. It's not a traditional brilliant cut. It's got sort of a checkerboard on the pavilion and on the girdle facets, so it's kind of cool. And looking down onto the table facet, it's a really pretty stone. So it's kind of a greenish yellow citrine, and I think it'll make for a pretty piece. It's about 28.85 carats if my scale is correct. So it's a big stone with a deep pavilion. So I'm going to create a setting for it. I'm basing this setting off of one I saw on a ring once a long time ago online. I remember seeing one that was made out of half-round wire that was all soldered together and then curves up and grabs the edge of the stone. So we'll see if I can pull this off. The biggest issue with this one, I think, is going to be keeping it facing forward because it's a big, heavy stone, so it may want to move. I think what I'll probably do is I'll probably split a chain and put two different attachment points on the piece itself to hook the two halves of the chain to. That usually helps to keep it facing forward. So we'll give it a try, see how it turns out. I'm not 100% confident I can do this, but there's only one way to find out for sure. So. Before we get started, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon. And I have some new patrons, and I wanted to thank them especially for joining up. I have Maytag1964, Amy S., Jeannie M., and Kimberly J. Thank you so much for your support. I think you'll find that that's a really nice environment over there with a lot of cool people. So make sure to tap into the knowledge over there as it's a really nice artistic community. So thank you for your support, and thank you to my previous patrons as well. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we're about to pass 22,900 last I looked, so we're real close to that. Thank you for that. That's amazing. I can't believe I have so many followers now, but I really do appreciate it. And I also appreciate the nice comments that you leave, and I appreciate the support that you give me financially, like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks, people buying my merch or my ebooks. That stuff all makes my channel sustainable, so I do appreciate that. That helps me to keep going, so thanks for that. All right, well, let's get started on this project and see if we can pull it off. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks. I have a number of different models on my merch store if you're interested. I find they're a great way to keep track of your projects and sketch up your designs. And there's a lot of different ones on the merch store. This one has a gauge chart to inches to millimeters because a lot of people overseas don't use gauges, so I think that's kind of a useful chart. There's some other different bits of information on the various ones. There's a ring size chart and other things like that. But the thing that I like the most about it is the little dot matrix in the background. It helps me to be able to draw things a little more symmetrically, in theory. Oops, I did this one upside down. I do that periodically when I turn the page. Okay, that's alright. So here's the stone I have. And it's a real pretty kind of almost a lemon quartz, I would guess, with some brownish tones to it almost, but definitely some green hues to it. I love it. It's a beautiful stone and it's cut well, and so I'm excited to try and set it. So here's my thought. Okay, I've seen one before where it used half-round wire, and like I said, I think it was a ring, but I'm going to make a pendant. And it looked to me, from what I was seeing, is that they took half-round wire, soldered it together, and then cut down into it so that the individual pieces were separate prongs, and then we'll kind of dome it to get it in the shape. We'll have to figure out where the line is, where the girdle of the stone fits, right here, because that's where it's going to sit in there. I need to make sure it has enough room to contain this deep pavilion that it has. And then we'll be cutting a hole in the middle too to allow more light to it. I think I want it to be not, perfectly domed like this. I may dome it and then flatten the bottom a little bit somehow, and then we'll bring these back up. Like I said, we'll put some kind of I was thinking of doing a bail, but I think I might, more likely, somewhere on the base here, attach you know, a ring over here and a ring over here, so we can have a chain that's split coming off like that. And I think that's probably the best bet in order to keep it from flipping a lot. So we'll see if we can pull this off. I think it's probably just going to be primarily 8 gauge half round, which is 3.25 millimeters. In width, and maybe a couple of jump rings made out of 16 or 16 gauge round or something. And then I'll split a chain and we'll put some rings on the end of the chain too. So, but I think to start with, I kind of drew this out proportionally, and I hope that I have enough here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder. Let's solder 5. I got 7 here listed here, but I cut 5 of these pieces of 8 gauge half round. So I'm going to straighten these all out and solder them together, and then we'll go from there. If I need to add 2 more, which I may, we'll see. But if not, we'll just we'll go with what we got. These pieces ended up being about, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40, 47 millimeters, almost 50 millimeters. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and file them all. Then we'll straighten them. I'm not going to worry about getting them all out straight because I'm going to be rounding these ends anyway. The way I came up with the size of these was I took one and I domed it in my dapping block, and then I got it to fit kind of where it had enough sticking up above this to actually be a prong and still reach beneath that pavilion in the center of the stone. So these are the longest dimension from the center here, if that makes any sense. I don't know if my communication skills are that great today. I keep stumbling over my words. This is probably not going to be a beginner project. It's probably going to be a little bit more advanced than that. So if you're new to this, maybe do some other projects first and then come back to this one after you've had a little more experience. A little frustration when you start is good, but if you haven't quite mastered all of the soldering skills you need in order to do something that requires a little more experience, then it's kind of frustrating. So alright, so let's solder that together and see how that works. If you're new to my channel, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, which looks like this. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. And my torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. It draws in atmospheric air rather than having an oxygen tank, so it's not as hot as an oxyacetylene, but it's hotter than a propane or a butane torch. So it's really kind of a nice medium temperature torch that works great with silver. So I don't know if they still are, but these kind of torches used to be really popular with plumbers. I'm not sure plumbers use that much copper pipe anymore, honestly. I always chuck my tools off to the side and then I can't find them. So don't forget to, if you enjoy my content, to like the video and subscribe. I've noticed lately that while my followers are still growing, I don't know if YouTube adjusted the algorithm or something, but getting less. The video is not getting shown to as many people, so I'm not getting as many hits, I think. And so I would love it if you'd share this with some friends, tell them about my channel. That would really help. So I'm going to initially put a few pieces on here. I don't really want a huge amount of solder on each one of these. If I need to, though, I will go back and pick a little bit in. I'll talk about pick soldering in a minute if I remember to. Make sure you get that to run all the way down, and then in a while we can cut it with a saw so it's not all the way down. But we'll control exactly how far down it goes. So I'm going to kind of try and find this about the center of this thing, just so I have some starting point. That's pretty close to the center there. So I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to try and file these down so they're all the same length. And then I think what I'll do then is I'm going to cup it like this in order to get an idea how far down I need to make the cuts in this so that I have it match up to the edge of the stone correctly, but we'll see. Let's get it straight first on the ends. If you've never seen these are handy for getting things real kind of 90-degree angle. Oops, not if you do that though. It's pretty square on that side. So let's do this. I'm going to put a little bit of masking tape on here. I was going to do 7, but I think 5 is enough. That's going to be good enough, probably. So while it's here, what I'm going to do is take a T-pin. Scratching the shape of the stone there. And so then what I think I'll do is I will saw from here down to here on all of these. So let's go saw those down. This is a number 00 blade. Okay, let's head back over the other area. So I have this template. Thought it might be nice to use that to cut out this center part right here. And I was making that about the same size as the table facet on here. So kind of use that as a guide. That's probably the right one right there. So let's use that one. Well, I think let's go saw that center part out too. I hope that's the right thing to do. Okay, so I'll drill a hole and then we'll cut that center part out. So I drilled a little hole there. I think I'm just going to kind of clean that up with my Dremel, so I'll be right back. So I know somebody's going to tease me about not having a brass hammer, but I don't have one yet, so I'm going to start though by these curved just a little bit. This needs to sit up a little higher than that, I think, though. So maybe we need to dip this down a little bit in the middle. So what I'm trying to do is get it to kind of stay in place, centered and straight, or at least as straight as I can get it. And then I think what I'm going to do is scratch a line where that girdle meets. Okay, so I think let's go over, I'm going to use a ball burr to cut a groove along that line. You got to be a little careful with these, especially if you're using a non Fordham sort of tool, because these go really fast. It wears out bits really fast too, but that's what I have, so that's what I'm going to work with. And I'm just going to try and kind of I think that's about right as far as how this sits on here. So I kept playing with this while I was off camera to see if I could get it to fit in there nicely. And what I had to do was bend these individual prongs inwards until they touched, and I also domed it a little bit taller so it was more like that. And we're pretty close. And then what I just did was I was trying to figure out a way to get a perfectly symmetrical cut here, and if anybody can tell me what they would do in this situation, I'd appreciate it. I was kind of eyeballing just a little bit sticking up above that girdle right there. So I'm going to cut that off about there and then round off all of those prongs. So let's get him out of there. I'm going to cut him a little taller so that I can file him. A little above the mark, I should say. You could use your saw if you wanted to. Okay, so now I'm just going to spend some time rounding the tops of each of these, and I'll probably use my rotary tool some, but each of them rounded off. Okay, well I'm going to keep doing that, probably off camera here, since you don't need to watch me do the whole thing, but that's the idea. Round them off nice and I'll smooth them out with the Dremel. Okay, I got this kind of cleaned up. I got the ends kind of rounded. I can do further cleanup on that when we're getting towards the end, but I was feeling like this is too rocky as far as the way it moves, and so I need a base so it's less likely to move around too much when it's sitting on someone's chest. So I flattened out a little bit of 12 gauge square wire in my rolling mill. It ended up being about a millimeter wide, so it's about like 18 gauge sheet. And I thought I would kind of flare it outwards in one of these things. See if we can get kind of a flare going there. Kind of like that. Now I'm going to anneal this, and then we're going to try and make it into an oval. See if we can get it to sit right under that. If you're new to this, annealing is re-softening the metal after you've work hardened it. Pounding on it makes it much more stiff and springy. So if you want to soften it back up again, you kind of heat it up to a little dull red color there. Kind of let it cool off. So I think I'm going to try and find that kind of the central point of the sides of these. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of create a dip in this so this sits down in there a little better. We'll see how that works. I think I'm going to just solder that on like that. I think it's okay that it doesn't touch down here on the sides because it'll allow more light to get to the stone, which is good. And it'll kind of create a platform once I file it flat after it's on here. So let's use a little bit of medium solder here to solder this down. That looks pretty centered. Let's try it and see. What's the worst thing that can happen? There's quite a bit of mass in this bottom piece, so in order to really get it to stick. Oops. A little movement there that I didn't want. I'm going to fix that. That, however, did not solder on very straight, so let's do something else. Things are less likely to move that way then. Let's get that solder to reflow, and I'm going to tip this just a little bit, hopefully. Pretty good, actually. Okay, so I think what I'll do now is I'm going to try and get this to be straighter. I think I'm going to attach a jump ring here and a jump ring here. And we'll use that where we connect the bail to. I think that'll be pretty cool. So, and we'll use some easy solder to do that. Let me see if I got a little bit of maybe 16 gauge round left. So you won't be able to see a heck of a lot of the setting, which is fine by me. I just wanted to kind of show off the stone on this one. So I'll just split a chain, put a jump ring on the end of each, and then we'll let that pickle, and then we'll try and get that set. I may need to cut the trench along the girdle a little bit deeper, because this is pretty thick wire and I need to be able to bend it over that a little bit. So, alright, so I'll let that pickle and then polish it up, and we'll set the stone when I'm back. Okay, a couple of things I did after I polished. For one, I took these prongs down here at the bottom and I bent them manually, checking periodically by popping the stone in here to see I had a good angle there. And I think we're pretty good on the bottom ones. I'll have to go back and clean those up with a blue wheel on the Dremel. A fine polishing wheel, I think they are. These ones I'm going to push over and very gently do that so I don't chip the stone. One of the things I did was I made this even thinner in the trench here with another ball burr, a smaller one, in order to make those bend easily at the top. But I thought these ones I could get by with bending them in advance, and they would be pretty stout. I'm going to use these. I'm going to push those prongs over. I may need to go further. I'm going to cut that trench just a little bit deeper. Okay, so I thinned it out a little bit more in there. I think I'm actually going to have to thin out the outside of these prongs at the top in order to get them really to lay down. Everything else is looking pretty good. So after that, I'll just connect this chain to these rings. I put some little jump rings on the end of this, and it's an 18-inch chain. So I'll add that on for the pictures, and then hopefully we'll have some nice pictures for you. So, all right, well, let me know what you think, and what would you have done? Would you have done this way? Would you have done it differently? Do you like this kind of style? Tell me what you think. Okay, well, that was the large multi-prong citrine pendant. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I'd love it if you'd head over to my main YouTube channel page. You'll find that I have over 500 videos there. I do 3 per week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and one on Saturday. So there's a ton of content coming out all the time. I try to do lots of variety, so there's many different projects you can tap into to help stimulate your own creativity. And there's lots of different skill levels in the various videos. So I think you'll find some beginner projects as well as some advanced projects and anywhere in between. So check it out, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget the video description down below. There's some important links there. There's a link to my Patreon where you can find out more about that really cool artistic community. It's also, if you get tired of the YouTube ads, my lowest tier is $5 a month, and then you get all of my videos that I put out on YouTube, but minus the ads. So that's kind of a nice way to circumvent the advertising here. There's also some different tiers that provide you with exclusive content. Almost every week I do a Patreon exclusive video, and I have live streams with some of my members. And so it's a nice kind of environment over there. And there's a Discord server where you can share your work and look at other people's work, so it's a nice place. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks. I have a bunch of different models with different charts on the back and things. Great way to keep track of your projects and to have a record so you can go back and see how you did things if you want to repeat. And if you want to get a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, buy my ebooks. I have one for 2024 and one for 2023. They're both downloadable from my merch store, but there's also a specific link to 2024 is in the description here. So each ebook covers every video from that year, And it includes pictures of my sketch, pictures of the final project. It includes a materials list, a difficulty rating, and some notes I made about the project itself, which includes things like, would I do it differently if I was to do it again? What did I learn from it? Was this one hard or easy? Would I ever do this again? Or did I think it was a flop? So those kinds of things. It's a nice way to have a whole bunch of projects at your fingertips, and a super nice way to support my channel. So thank you for that in advance. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.